Okay. So basically, what do you mean by serverless? Lambda automatically runs our code with provision to manage. Just we have to upload the code and the Lambda will take care of the rest. That means we don't have to worry about any of the physical server or anything. It automatically scales our application by running a response to each trigger. Code run in parallel, so scaling is done automatically. For example, if your application is going through high traffic, it will automatically increase the number of server, and if the traffic on its website decreases, it will automatically decrease the server's percentage. That is, you are built only for the uh, only for the service you are consuming. Billing is done in seconds. We only have to pay for the time we use. These are charged for about 100 milliseconds, and we pay for how many 100 milliseconds we have used this service. This service has also a great built-in tolerance properties. Like even if there's some error, it can automatically rectify them. We'll know about that in our further uh, presentation. Okay, so what is Lambda and why Lambda? Lambda falls under the compute section of AWS along with other services such as EC2, Amazon EBS, Amazon load balancing, and many other services. It allows us to execute code or any type of information. We can do any sort of backend code. Like we have tons of variety of code, but only we can code in 5 different languages that are Node.js, Python, Java, C hash, and Go. Using this language, we can write any sort of code and Lambda will take care rest of it. Lambda is used to run code in response to the event from the other service. Like we can connect Lambda with the other service such as EC2 and our database. This can be combined for making a real life application. We'll discuss about that in our next slide. So I'll give you a practical life example in which Lambda is used. Lambda is used to process images. Like if we put some of the images in our S3 bucket, object will get uploaded in the bucket in some format. That format might not be identified by your machines. So the uploaded photo is converted into the thumbnails and is converted into type of image that your machine can understand. Like if you're using Mac, Ubuntu, or any other operating system, the image format has to be different. But Lambda can automatically convert it from one format to another. These are some of the features in which AWS Lambda is used. Another real life example is Twitter. I I know that most of you has heard about Twitter. Like we can collect hashtag trending data from the Twitter, and data is received and can be added in the Kinesis stream of the AWS and later fed into the Amazon environment. Lambda action is triggered and it receives the data, and data is stored in the database for analysis. These data is used by the big companies for their research purpose. It also has other applications such as chatbot, data processing, Amazon Alexa, one of the most popular use of Lambda. I hope that most of you have used or have at least heard about this. And it is also used in IT automation. You have heard now there's this concept of smart homes and everything is connected with the help of IoTs and Alexa. Okay, so now we will study each of these features in detail. As I've already told you about the features, like there is no limit. You can write any code in the Lambda you want. It just have to be in these 5 languages: Java, Python, Go, Node.js, and C hash. Simple resource model. That is, AWS Lambda is really very powerful. It can go from 128 MBs to 3 GBs in second. It's like you can power up or down your machine depending upon the usage and traffic on your website, and you have to pay only for what you use. These services are highly secure and highly flexible. If you host your application and data on these services, it is very difficult to hack these, or these are very secure. Now, moving on next, these are some of the example event source that trigger Lambda, like AWS, that like S3 service can be used with this to store the data. Endpoint like Amazon Alexa one is used, and event message service. For that, we use other service called Amazon ACS, Amazon SNS, and there are other services also. Now, what is Amazon API Gateway? Amazon API Gateway is a fully managed service that make it easy for the developer to create, publish, maintain, monitor, and secure API at any scale. APIs act as the front door for the application to access data, business logic, or functionalities from the backend service. Using API Gateway, you can create RESTful APIs and WebSockets APIs that enable real-time two-way communication between the applications. API Gateway support serverless workloads as well as the web applications. Gateway also handles all the tasks involved in accepting and processing above the hundred of thousands of documents, including traffic management, authorization, and access control. API version ma- API Gateway has no minimum fees or startup cost. Like so, you can also use it like for your own projects at school. You pay for the API. Uh, you pay for the API calls you receive and the amount of data transfer out. With the API gateway pricing models, you can reduce your cost of your API usage scales. That is, these APIs are very cost efficient. These are some of the Lambda function that we will be learning in our hands-on session. So we'll be working with the JSON in our hands-on session that will be taken by Shakib. So moving on further, what are the benefits of step function uh, orchestration? The step function to combine multiple AWS Lambda function into responsive serverless application and microservices without having to write code for workflow logic, parallel processing, error handling, timeout. You can also orchestrate data and service that run on Amazon EC2 instance, containers, or on the premises servers. These are the main three features uh, that are productivity, resilience, and agility. So moving on further, what's new in the serverless? Why Amazon Cloud is used the most is because it's keep on developing its clouds. It's keep on introducing new services and technologies in its clouds. That's why it is the leading cloud producer in the world. So AWS service serverless application and repositories. The AWS service application is managed repositories for serverless application. It enables teams, organization, individual developers to store and share reusable application and easily assemble and develop serverless architecture into powerful new ways. Using the serverless application repositories, you don't need to clone, build packages, or publish source code to AWS before deploying it. Instead, you can use the pre-built application from the serverless application repositories into your serverless architecture, helping you and your team to reduce duplicate work. It ensures the organization best practices, and it will help us to reach the market faster than your competitors. Integration with AWS identity and access management. I think I have also told you about this on our IAM roles in the previous EC2 webinar also. You can provide a resource level control of each application, enables you to publicly share application with everyone or privately share them with the specific AWS account. You can share the application with your team or developers that you are working with really very easily. Okay. So moving on further, each application is packed with the AWS serverless application. That is, we also call it as SAM. These templates define the AWS resources used. Publicly shared application also include a link to the application source code. There is no additional charge to the serverless application repositories. You only pay for the AWS resources used in the application you deploy. So these are some of the examples of that deployment and enterprises connectivities. Now, what all companies are using Lambda? Here you can see some big names also like Airbnb, Coca-Cola, and AirAsia. You can see that how important this service is. Like such big companies are also using it. So moving on further, that is serverless DevOps and its other components. As we have, like, we'll talk about SAM in detail from here. The AWS Service Application, also SAM, is an open source framework for building serverless application. It provides shortened syntax to express functions, API, database applications you want. You can model it using this. During deployment, SAMs transform and expand the SAM syntax into AWS Cloud Formation syntax, enabling you to build serverless application faster. This reduces your work tremendously and make your work really very fast. To get started with building SAM-based application, you can use the AWS SAM CLI. SAM CLI provides a Lambda-like execution environment that lets you locally build, test, and debug the application defined by SAM templates. You can also use the SAM CLI to deploy your application to AWS. SAM and SAM CLI are open source under Apache. This is one of its main advantages. Like students like us always needed documentation or help. Like most of you have used GitHub. Why it is very popular? Because it is open source and anywhere from anyone can upload and give you your help. Like you have a lot of documentation about that. So SAM is also an open source like GitHub. Lambda allies traffic shifting. This is something that you will learn more in our hands-on session, that how the traffic is shipped. Now, moving on to the next service, that is LightSail. So why do we use LightSail? LightSail offers virtual servers that are easy to set and backend by powerful and backend is really powerful, that is maintained mostly by AWS. You can launch your website, web application, or projects in minute and manage your instance from the initiative LightSail consoles or API. As you're creating your instance, LightSail lets you click to launch a simple operating system, a pre-configured application, or deployment stack such as WordPress, Windows, LAMP, and there are many more examples of that. Every LightSail instance comes with a built-in firewall allowing you to allow or restrict traffic to your instance based upon the source IP, port, and protocols. Once your instance is running, you can custom alarms and be notified by the email message if the something is out of the like something is suspicious, like someone is trying to hack your website or something like that. Now, simplified load balancing. LightSail simplified load balancing routes web traffic across your instance so that your website and application can accommodate variation in traffic, be better protected from and deliver a seamless experience to your visitors. Additionally, LightSail Load Balancer includes integrated certificate management, providing free SSL certificate that can be provisioned and added to your load balancer in just a few clicks. You can request and manage certificate directly from the LightSail console, and we manage renewal on your behalf. Like AWS automatically renews your certificate. Managed database is also a very good feature of LightSail. Like with LightSail Managed Database, you can easily scale your database independently of your virtual server, improve the availability of your application, or run standalone database in your cloud. You can also deploy multi-tiered application all within the LightSail by creating multiple instances that are connected to a centrally managed database and a load balancing that directs traffic to your instance. LightSail managed database plans bundles together memories, processing, storage, and transfer a launch into a single predictable monthly price. Now, as your cloud idea expand, you can easily move to EC2 with a simple guided experience with the features. Lightsail offer you comfort knowing that you can grow your website or application. You can scale it up and down according to your needs. Upgrading is simple. You can take a snapshot of your instance and follow the step-by-step procedure of the Lightsail that they provide you with a proper documentation of how you have to set up your websites. Okay, this is the workflow of launching the EC2 service. Like we have, I think, pretty much discussed in the last webinar. That is, first we have to launch our virtual machine, and then we have to add the memory to our virtual machine. Then we have to manage the IAM roles. Basically, these IAM roles are for like to provide access to other users also. Then we have to create the security group and manage the SSH key. In just 4 to 5 steps, your EC2 instance is built and ready to go. Okay, now Lightsail has been teamed up with Bitnami. I think most of you have heard about this. It is a great open source application. Bitnami application images are pre-configured and packaged to get you running quickly. It is really very reliable. Consistent set of components is open source application that uh, it's up to date. As you know that these applications are open source, so everyone around the world constantly can work on this and make it better. They are free to use and and being updated regularly. Okay, now when to light sale. This is very important for you to know that exactly when you need to use the light sale. Lightsail is best suited for the products or projects that require very few virtual private servers and user who prefer a simple management interface. Like it can be also used for our college projects. Like for small projects, it's good to go. It commonly uses cases for Lightsail includes running website, web application, blog, e-commerce site, simple software, and many more examples. Okay, so what are the key features? Static IPs, like once you define your IP to that your websites and all, it become constant. Snapshots, you can always take the backup data and can store it in your S3 buckets and other uh, and the database that you have created and connected with your EC2 machines. You can quickly create new instance. As I told that only you can create your new instance in 4 to 5 steps. Automatic scaling is also there. Like you can add automatic scaling to your Lambda and it will increase or decrease the number of instance automatically as the traffic on your according to the needs of the traffic on your website. Okay. From this, I think now we can do our hands-on session. That's it for the theory part, and from here, Shakib can continue for the hands-on session.
All right. Thank you, Shubham, for your wonderful presentation.
Uh,
Um,
just
yes.
a minute, Shakib. Like I totally forgot about the polls. I think
Um,
we
I
can.
think we can do it in the last.
Okay, fine, no issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Cool. All right. So, first of all, Malai Vanakkam and good evening, everyone. And let's get started. Uh, right. So, let me share my screen. Right. Okay. So, the question of second half of this webinar is what exactly we'll be doing, right? So we'll be creating a REST API using Lambda, AWS Lambda service. And for those of you who are not familiar with what REST is, what is REST API, I'll just sum it up in in 1 2 lines so that you get a very good and a brief idea about what exactly is going to happen in next half an hour or so, right? So REST, that is representational state transfer, is an architectural style of applications that are being developed for users. Primarily, we say web applications, and these applications are called RESTful web services. Now, we know in developing an application, we require an API. So everything, more or less, everything you are communicating using WhatsApp, texting each other, it requires an API. There is a thing called API happening in the backend, which is API is an acronym for Application Programming Interface, which is a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. So it kind of acts like a liaison, which basically helps to transfer data or communicate between you as a user or and the server. It's like that. Each time you use an app like Facebook or send an instant message or check the weather on your phone, you are actually using API. So the two terminologies are RESTful API and RESTful web services, REST API and RESTful web services. And the third thing we'll be dealing is JSON. So I think most of you already know who are practicing or developing web applications, but for those who are not aware, that is basically JavaScript object notation. There are 3 points. It is a lightweight format for storing and transporting data, is often used when data is sent from server to a web page, and is self describing and very easy to understand. So this is how it goes for the basic terminology. Now, how would you define an architecture? So I believe my screen is shared, and if you can see, the architecture is as follows: that the user will request using an API gateway's URL, and that URL will trigger the Lambda function. So a Lambda function needs to be triggered to run its function. All right. So that function will be triggered, and then the result will be sent back to the user. So this is something I have. This is a workflow I have developed, created for you, which you can access it right away. I'm putting the link um, in the chat box right now, so you can access the whole workflow of how things will be going. Right. Just a second. So you can go ahead, click on this link, you will get the whole PDF. Now following on, when you go on Lambda, you will need to follow all of these steps, and we'll relate each and every step we are doing with our workflow. Create function and then all of that stuff. Then we'll set up the API gateway, and we'll have a full overview of what we have done. So I'll quickly turn off my video to conserve the bandwidth, right? Now let's get started. So first of all, you would need to go to your Educate portal, which you had already signed for, and I'll just sign in with my credentials. Once you have signed in, this is how the dashboard looks. You need to go to AWS account, go to AWS Educate Starter account, and then from here we'll be redirected to AWS console. right? So we don't need these tabs. So as you all know, we have all of the list here already. All of these services are there, but we want to search, so we'll search Lambda, right? So we'll click on Lambda. This will take us to the Lambda console, AWS Lambda console. And this is pretty much how you will be experiencing your dashboard, your interface as well, because we haven't created any functions. If you have, then it might be showing up here. So the first step is create a function. And for this demo purpose, we'll be having author from scratch because we'll be, developing everything from scratch. But if you want, you can go ahead and click on user blueprint and explore all of these blueprints, which are from the prominent use cases all around the world, and that you can go ahead and explore on your own. And browse, you can also browse serverless app repository, which Shubham had mentioned, and it contains thousands, I think, 599 public applications based on their daily use cases. So for this session, I'll be having author from scratch, and then the next thing will be naming the function. So here, what exactly we are doing in building a REST API is we'll be dealing with a shopping e-commerce website where the Lambda function would help us to get the items that are that are in the store, and a post method, a get method would get the items, and post method would post the items that are in our cart. Don't worry if you don't know what are methods get post. I'll be explaining it in a bit of time. Now I'll write a function name, so I'll write shopping demo. If you want to do the camel casing thing, then you can, it's pretty much the best practice. So to having the second word first letter capital, that is called camel casing. So shopping demo, we'll have the runtime as node.js, node.js 12.x. X is basically the version types they keep on updating, right? So node.js, and then you would want to check if this create a new role with basic Lambda permissions has been clicked, because this is what exactly we want. We want the basic information. I mean, the basic Lambda a role in an IAM, that is Identity Access Management. Each and every account is under an IAM, and it has some basic specific roles attached to it. And what this will do is create a basic role which has Lambda permissions. So we have selected, and then we just need to click on create functions. Once this done, we'll be provided with a interface to put in our logic, our backend logic, or the function logic, and that is all on the JavaScript side. If you don't know JavaScript, then don't worry. These are something very basic, syntax, if, else, and that's it. So this is what the basic default syntax is. That the response is strings goes to 100 and it returns hello from Lambda. So if you want to test it, we can go ahead and click on test. That will take us to saying create a new test event. So each and every test here it needs to be created as an event. So I'll just try, the template is hello world, and the event name we can give it test one. And the input, basically, what exactly do we need to give the function to be, performing correctly, would be, defined here. But since we are just returning hello world, then we don't need to put anything here. when we'll click on create, and that will create a uh, an event which is test one. Now I'll click on test. It will run the function, and it will deliver the results that okay, execution result succeeded, and this is what the body is, hello from Lambda. Now we'll be you can also see the result here as well. Now we'll be removing all of these basic syntax, and then um, put our own function, our logic. So the 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 variable event knows everything about in which state the lambda is being processed in. It knows each and everything, the body or the status. For example, I'll just write down the syntax and explain you. If event dot http method, right, is equals to get. So you now know that event variable knows everything, that okay, the lambda is having a get method request or a post method. So a get method and a post method is something, for example, if you are a user and you want to have something or see a data. For example, just say you are having typing what Google. So what it will do, it will fetch the pages, all of these services, and the method which is being used in that request is get method, right? So it is it's similar to if you ask your a family member to get you a water bottle. So that's exactly what get is, and post is something I'll be explaining with an example. So I'll define if event.http method is equals to get, then I'll return a function, get item event. Okay, so this is how you return a function get item. So now you can see there is an caution sign, and it says that the function does not know what is get item. So we'll be defining this function later, right, in this um, index.js file. And second, if would be event.http method is equals to post. If that is post, then we'll return, return create cart, create cart function, right? So this is what we have defined in that, in our main handler. Exports.handler is our main function. We have to define each and everything here. Now we'll be defining the get item functions. So for that, we'll write const. Don't worry, these are some syntax things in JavaScript, so you will get it later on if you don't know. But you can just follow right now. Const get item event, and then um, we'll say let item. So the item variable will contain some details about that item. So there are four details I'll be putting in. First is the description. So what is the description? What how exactly an item is. So I'll write an orange t-shirt. Okay. The next field would be color. So I'll write orange. Size, of course, if it's a t-shirt, then it's important to define the size. So I'll write medium, and then the price. So I'll write $6. So we have defined a variable item, and that item contains all of these data, description, color, size, price. The next thing would be returning something to the function. So we'll return status code if this function is executing properly, then we'll return status code 200, which is that okay, this is working fine. Go ahead with it. The next thing we'll be returning is the body. So what exactly do we want to send to the web page, right? So to the user. So the data right here is in JSON format, but the data represented on if we want to represent this data in a web page, then we need to string it. You need to convert this into string. So that can be done using JSON dot stringify. It's an inbuilt function data JSON dot stringify, and that JSON variable is item as we have defined. So this is exactly how it has to be done. We'll put a colon, and then that's it. That's it. We have defined our get item function. Now you can see there is no caution sign get item there. Now we'll create our second function, which is um, the create card thing. So typically, when we have created a cart or add items to our cart, the the activity which we want to do is submit those items in a database. Submit that item in a DynamoDB, which is a storage service, and retrieve it whenever you want it back. But for the simplicity of this demo session, I'll be printing the items which we have posted, the items which we have added in our cart, because that will have some complexity. But if you want to go and try to submit the data in DynamoDB, then there is a blueprint already available in where, when I showed you the Lambda dashboard. There you can go and see and search DynamoDB, and you get the result that they already have this function created where you can configure your credentials, and that's it. So nothing has to be written. So for this, I'll just write whatever has been passed to this. So let body is equals to JSON dot parse. So um, when we when we send some data to the Lambda function, then it needs to be parsed. So that can be done using JSON dot parse, and I told you that event knows everything, event variable. So event dot body will contain that information. And the second thing would be console dot log. This is basically the print statement in JavaScript, console.log. So console.log, this is the card created and was by. So here I'll print the body. Okay, body. So if this done, if this successful, then we'll return um, right? The first thing for important status code, will return status code 200. Okay, everything's good. And then second body. So in body, we need to again do that stringify thing, because I told you the reason right now. Stringify message, the card was created. If someone is following this hands-on session with me, then and if you are not able to, then don't worry. We'll be giving you the link for this video as well. So You can follow up later, no problem, right? So this is done. We have defined our get method. We have defined the post method. Both of these methods function. Now the final thing is let's just go back to our workflow and see what all we have done. We have created a function name, runtime, execution role default, clicked on create function. We have written on logic in index.js, and then the last thing is click on deploy. So we need to click on deploy. So the deploy button is here. Just need to click on deploy, and that's it. Deployment package successfully saved. So this is the part for from AWS Lambda. Now I'll be going to API Gateway. API Gateway. If you want, you can open this in new tab or in the same tab. That's totally dependent on you. I have opened this in new tab. Now, there are some options if you want HTTP API, WebSocket API, REST API. So, as you told, we'll be developing a REST API. So, click on build. It says, okay, welcome to your first API because we haven't created any API. So, click on OK. There is a sample API template here. If you want to go ahead, have a look, you can do that. But we'll be creating a new API. So, I'll be naming my API, which is very important. Shopping API, right? So, this is done. If you want to add any description, you can go ahead, but I'll write for demo purpose and endpoint region. That's it. Click on create API, and this will lead us to something like this. So this is a slash route, which is the root route. And now let's go back to our workflow and see what all we have done and what we need to do. So we have clicked on build REST API, new API, we have entered the name, clicked on create API. Now we need to create resource under actions. So a resource is similar to what route do you want your users to go, right? So let's go ahead and click on actions and click on create resource. Create resource. You want to name your resource. I'll name this as item, and the resource path will be automatically taken. That is slash item, and then you want to click on create resource. So we have created the item slash item thing, which is for the get method request. And then the second resource we'll be creating is for the post thing. So make sure that you don't click on the item and then click on create a resource again, because then what will happen is you can already see that if you create a resource that will go under item, so the path that would be followed is slash item slash whatever resource you have created. So we don't want that. We want the resource to be under the root. And here I'll write card. So this defines the card resource, and then click on create resource. That's it. So once we have created the resource, now we need to create a method for a resource. So we need to create method for both of these routes. So first we'll create a method for cart, and we'll go again select cart and go to actions. Click on create method, and here we'll select post because cart is for the post method, right? So click on post, click OK, and now it will ask us to choose the integration point. How where do you want to integrate that API gateway? So I'll be choosing Lambda function, which is already set there, and click on use Lambda proxy integration. This is basically to speed up the process of triggering the function, and mostly for speed purpose. So click on that. Lambda region, make sure that the Lambda function where you have created should be in the same region. But if I search sh, you will be all automatically um, popped up with a drop list having the Lambda function. So I'll be choosing shopping demo and then click on save. So it will say you are about to give API gateway permission to invoke your Lambda function, which is absolutely correct. And you need to click on OK. It basically gives permission to API gateway to access your Lambda. So that's on it. Once this is done, then all right, we need to set up the item resource, item path. So click on item, click on create resource. I'll sorry, not resource. Click on create method. Then we'll create select the git and click OK. Now again, Lambda function. Check on proxy integration. Uh, Search our function and then click on save. Again, it will be asking permission. Click on OK, and that's it. So you have defined resources, you have defined path, you have defined methods. Now the last and the foremost thing, very important thing is that you need to deploy this API. Unless you deploy, this API won't be active. So the last thing is click on under actions, click on deploy API. So this is something like a deployment stage, or wherever something for you to easy to understand that okay, which stage do you want to deploy. So you need to create a new stage because we haven't created any new stage. Stage is basically if you know that is API is in development stage, then you would write dev, right? And if this API is in production stage, that is final stage used by users, so you would write prod. But you can name anything based on your understanding. So I'll write live, which says okay, this API is live. If you want, you can add the description or deployment description, but I'll leave it as it is and click on deploy. So once this done, you'll be getting an error, but that's okay, not to bother about. You'll be getting an URL. So hit this URL and it will be saying missing authentication token, because remember, we need to add the route which we have created, the item route and the card. So the post method we won't be able to do the post thing using a browser, but we can use the get route, get method route, which is item, right? So if we hit enter, you will be able to see all of that data we had entered into our logic Lambda function. So description and orange t-shirt. So pretty much it. If you define your user interface, having a data coming from a Lambda function and defining it basically on your use case, then you can say, okay, this is the data coming, and then you need to define the description, stuff like that, and you can implement the HTML, CSS as well. So when you're developing an API, you always work with JSON and not the front end part, which is the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript things. But this is how it looks. All right. So to make you understand the post method, I would use a software which is called Postman, and that is exactly what we'll be seeing here. That if we send the data to the server, that okay, these are the items which I want in my cart, and this is my user name, then how would the Lambda function do with it? and what exactly you will be doing with that data is I'll be showing in the Postman thing, right? So quickly, I'll copy this URL, go to my Postman software, and then make sure that the method is click post. You would require to enter the URL and not to forget that we need to add the route, which is cart. Okay. And then we'll be sending some data. For that, you need to go to body, raw, JSON. And, I was trying it earlier, so that's exactly what the data is. But let's say if you want to change the item number, because obviously we want variety, right? So I have changed the number. This number can correspond to any item, XYZ, or maybe 1 plus 8T, because that's in demand right now, right? So I would want that hypothetically, and the user is Sami, all right? So this is what I have defined the data in a JSON format, and then click on send. So it's sending that data to the function, and then we are getting the response back, the return message back, that is the card was created. If you remember, let me just show you what we had defined a return thing, which was the card was created. Correct. So this is exactly what's happening here, and we have successfully um, got the response that okay, the card was created and the status is 200. Okay, so where exactly did this data go, right? So if you want to see, then go back to a Lambda console, enter into a function, and click on monitoring. So everything is being monitored, yeah, each and everything, which is done by another AWS service, which is called CloudWatch, and each and everything is being done here. Everything, your duration of how many times, or how many minutes was, or how many seconds was this lambda working on. So you can find all of these there. But what we are interested in is where exactly did that data go. So I'll click on view logs in CloudWatch, and that will end up in enabling us to see that data we had posted using Postman. So now let's just wait and let it pop it up. So you can see that okay, we had invoked this lambda function, and let's just go. The first log would be the hello world thing which we did, the test which we did. So that's another log, and the second log is which we did with the Postman software. So there are many data available, duration, build duration, memory size, use. But what we are interested in is that this is the card created and passed by, and that thing item has been displayed. Okay. So this is what exactly we wanted. That okay, we got the data back to our lambda, and if you want to dig deep, then you want to save these data into a DynamoDB or some storage service, right? So this is what exactly it is, and this concludes um, the lambda hands-on. And don't worry, if you were not able to follow up, you'll be getting the link soon, right? Now we'll be moving to LightSail, but let me tell you that LightSail, on updated terms and conditions on using AWS Educate Starter account, is not available. So you would need an commercial AWS account to access the LightSail, but not to worry. I'll be giving you a good hands-on session, and you can watch it on repeat if you want. So let's just sign out and sign back in with my AWS account and go ahead. Meanwhile, um, so this is done, right? The workflow is complete. Meanwhile, let me give you what exactly. is Amazon LightSail. Very brief intro, right? So fine. So we'll be discussing now. In it's the easiest way to launch and manage a pre-configured virtual server. So it's basically if it has all of that stuff which you require, and you don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure. Now let's say that if you're choosing a EC2 platform and creating instances, then you have the freedom to decide the underlying infrastructure you handpick, like storage, server, security groups, IP addresses, VPCs, and many other components. Once you have chosen all the components, you need to put them together and host your application well. So that is one thing. But if you simplify, a neat system that's pre-configured and pre-assembled, as you just want to run your application on a built-in platform, the best option would be the virtual private server. So it's just like, a thali, that is a plate having everything, every dish, every possible dish, every, your favorite dessert, obviously. So it's basically like that it contains all of these stuff in small, limited amounts. And so that's how virtual private servers work. But the problem is that if you decide to expand these, you know the services inside a VPS, then it's a little bit complicated process. So there comes the LightSail, and it's very similar to virtual private server, but unlike virtual private server, it provides you with an option to auto scale. So you get simplicity of VPS, backed up by reliability and security of AWS. As your need grows, you will have option to auto scale and connect another, AWS services like database, SMS, that is, you text messages, services if needed. So Amazon LightSail, you can run simple application. You don't have to bother about underlying infrastructure, and you have an option to auto scale your resources according to your application. So in a very simple, basic line, LightSail is a virtual server that's cost effective, fast, and reliable with an easy to use interface. Now let's just go ahead and jump into LightSail. Again, the management console. You need to click on search for LightSail and click on the LightSail. This will take you to another more intuitive GUI, and as you can see, it's very appealing. Also, so that's how it goes. It so I would like that's my personal statement that it contains all of those components in under a roof, right? So you can manage instances here. You can manage databases with a click on the right, networking, storage, snapshots, and I'll come to the importance of snapshots in a bit. So this is how exactly the interface would look like. And let's just click on create instances and see what all options we get. So you can choose region and availability zones. So whatever region you want, if you want some other region, then you can go ahead with another region, and that's the region is basically to provide your users with the least latency for accessing your applications, right? So if you're in India or South Asia region, then you would go for Mumbai, right? So that's it. And then what is the platform you would want to choose? If you want to choose the Linux Unix platform, then they already have some amazing blueprints available, which I mentioned earlier, the pre-configured servers. And this is what Linux Unix will come to it. And then the Microsoft Windows blueprint. So if you want the OS only stuff, then you have Windows Server 19, 16, 2012 versions. And if you want App Plus OS, then they have this SQL Server. And if you want in the Linux versions, then App Plus OS have a variety which all of the developers need, right? So we have the WordPress multi-site, LAMP, Node.js. Those who are in web development field, they would probably know that these stuff. Nginx is a web server, right? And Magneto is an official, open source e-commerce creation platform. So if you want to, create a e-commerce website, then you can use this Magneto software as well. So for this demo session, I'll be creating a WordPress site. Let's just let it be click. And if you want to explore more uh, uh, blueprints, you can go ahead and search that in AWS Marketplace, where some would be free, some would be public, and some would be based on some charges developed by the best practices and the use cases right now. Correct. So we have an option of adding a launch script. If you want a specific particular application to be installed while creating the instance, then we can add the script here. If you want to change the SSH key pair, so SSH key is pretty much when accessing your instance using your local machine. So if you want to change the SSH key pair, then you can change, but I'll be leaving it to the default thing. And then they have the prices. Following are the prices and their suitable hardware configurations. For example, the least price has 512 GB of transferring data, 20 GB SSD, one virtual CPU, and 512 MB, and so on. So this goes on and as you can see, they have added new sizes as well based on customer demand. So they are always innovating. And you can create a number of instances based on your use case. For example, if you want to create 10 instances, then you can write 10. But for this session, I'll just create one instance and then that's it. So if you want to add some metadata to it, you can use the tags as well. Then click on create instance, and this would take less than 30 seconds or 40 seconds to actually pop up, and then we can connect to our instance as it is. Meanwhile, I'll show you how what do we have in our networking. So the first thing is static IP. Every time we create a virtual machine or an instance, it has a public IP, which changes every time we reboot or shut down or restart. Reboot and restart are same thing, right? So it changes every time basically. So if you're having a application serving your customers or users, then you wouldn't want um, uh, your IP address to be changed every time. So we use static IP. So I'll be creating a static IP, choose the instance. So I'll select our instance and then configure the name if you want, but I'll be going with this default name and then click on create. So it will automatically assign this static IP address to your instance automatically. Now, once it's done, okay, so we are back to our instance, and now we can uh, uh, let me just explain you the importance of snapshots. So when you use EC2, the pricing model is the price will be the time the EC2 is running. Okay, so that's what you will be charged for. But uh, in this light sale, or even if your instance is shut down, it will keep charging because that's how the pricing model is. So in that case, what you would need to do is click a snapshot, and that snapshot would include all the configurations you have made, such as connecting to database, having specific network. So it will have all of that stuff, in that snapshot. And once again, when you decide, okay, I need to put back my things, then we can, using that snapshot, we can again go back and do it. So now let's just go ahead and see, click on our IP, click on our instance, and then copy this. Let's just copy this instance, okay? And go ahead and see in our web browser. So this is how exactly the basic WordPress blog site would look like, right? So hello world, you would write your name. Now, how would you configure things? Correct. You need some admin portal, right? So this is here, a Bitnami manage portal. So you can go ahead and see, okay, how can you access the portal? So the username is user, and the password will be accessed when you enter your when you SSH in your instance. So we'll be seeing how we can SSH in our instance. So this is how the WordPress site, basic default site looks. Now, in the EC2 session, we had seen connecting to your virtual machine using PuTTY software, but most of you are aware about Git, and those who don't know what Git is, it's an online software management um, uh, software, kind of repository management. So that's how it is exactly. I haven't justified GitHub, I know, but that's a very pretty small and sweet definition. So once you install Git Bash or Git terminal on your desktop, you just need to open your Git Bash. You will be getting an option called Git Bash here. This will open up the Git Bash terminal. But but before this step, we need to download the SSH key. So where do we have to download? Like, connecting to your instance requires an SSH key. So how exactly it will be done? You can go to home, click on your instance, come down to bottom, and there's an option called account page. So click on that account page, and then you'll have an option to download. So this is how it's downloaded. I have downloaded my SSH key pair, and now I'll just copy my uh, pen SSH key file and put it on desktop, and rename it to SSH key, right? So as you can see, I have copied it to my desktop named sshk.pam. Right. Now the command goes in git bash terminal would be ssh space dash I uh, in brackets the name sshk.pem, the file name, and here the username to access the instance is bitnami. So I'll write bitnami at the rate and the copied static IP address. So that's so this is the IP address, and I'll hit enter. So it's saying that, are you sure you want to continue connecting? So I say yes, and this will lead me to having connected to the instance. Now, to access your admin portal, you would require a password which can be found by entering this command you know, they have this, ls is the command for Linux to, print all of the files in that directory. And then we have Bitnami application password file. So I'll write cat and then Bitnami application password, and I'll hit enter. So this is what exactly the password is. I'll copy it, and then we'll go back to our site and then click on login. So there is an option called login. We'll click on it. And as we know, we have the email at username, that is user, and then the password which we have just copied right now, and then click on login. So this will log in us to an admin panel of this WordPress site. And there you go. That's it. So everything's set up. Now you can write your first blog, whatever you want. So for your interest, I'll be giving um, my first blog. Wow, this is so great. Correct? Um, I'll publish it. I'll publish it publicly immediately. If you want to add tags, then that, public. So if you want to view the post, click on view post, and that's it. That's how we do go. So not that the purpose of LightSail is to have these applications, but also have a more on a bigger scale if you want. And it's very easy and convenient for the developers to host their application. Not only developers, but small startups, as we have seen in our first half slides, that small scale businesses is very helpful. This platform is very helpful. So I think that's it. That's how we go about LightSail. And um, thank you so much. Now we'll have a small